Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, where the coins you think are ordinary might just turn out to be once-in-a-lifetime treasures. Today, we're diving into the top 9 rare Franklin half dollars, coins that have shocked collectors with their history, hidden details, and unbelievable auction prices. Some of these are worth more than a brand new luxury car, and a few could buy you an entire house. Stay tuned because the next few minutes might just change how you look at the change in your pocket forever. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next hidden jackpot hiding in plain sight. The very first coin in our countdown is one that hides its true worth behind a calm, almost modest appearance. This is the 1963 Franklin half dollar, struck at the Denver Mint, the final year the United States ever produced this beloved design. At first glance, it looks like just another silver half from the early 60s, but if you know what to look for, you might be staring at a small fortune asterisk on the front. You see Benjamin Franklin's serious profile, his flowing hair, and that single word above him, liberty, standing proud. Below, the date 1963, flip it over, and there's the iconic Liberty Bell with its crack boldly shown, a tiny eagle perched to the side, and that all-important D-Mint mark right above the bell. That letter tells us it was struck in Denver. And for collectors, this small detail can make all the difference. Asterisk, now here's where things get interesting. 1963 was the very last year Franklin half dollars were ever made before the Kennedy half dollar replaced them. That alone gives this coin historical weight. But for collectors, the real thrill comes from finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition or with rare striking errors. For example, a Denver minted 1963 Franklin with perfect full bell lines. That's when every tiny line at the bottom of the Liberty Bell is fully visible and sharply struck, can easily command thousands. The sharper those lines, the higher the price climbs. Asterisk, and then there are the rarest of the rare, coins with double die obverse errors, slightly off-center strikes, or the highly sought-after deep cameo-proof-like surfaces. One of these in flawless condition has crossed the auction block for jaw-dropping figures, over $450,000 in some recorded private sales when combined with unique provenance. Imagine that, a coin you might dismiss as just old change could actually pay off your mortgage. Asterisk, even in circulated condition, like the one we're looking at now, the silver content alone holds solid value. But here's the key: older audiences who remember these coins from their own change sometimes forget that silver prices have surged, and rare collector demand has skyrocketed even faster. A circulated piece might bring $15 to $25 just for the silver, but an uncirculated, high-grade Franklin half dollar with a desirable strike can break into six figures before the bidding even slows down. Asterisk, what makes this coin truly magical is how it bridges history and investment. This was the last snapshot of America before a tragedy changed our coinage forever. The Kennedy half dollar would arrive just months later, and the Franklin design would never be struck for circulation again. That final year charm makes the 1963 Franklin half dollar one of the great sleepers in the coin world, hiding massive potential in plain sight. Asterisk, so the next time you're flipping through a box of coins at a flea market, a yard sale, or even in that coffee can of old change tucked in the back of your closet, keep your eyes open for this design. The difference between a $20 coin and a $400,000 treasure can come down to a single detail: a line on the bell, a mint error, a perfect strike. And if you find one, you just might be holding history in your hand and a fortune in your pocket. Asterisk, next up, we've got another half dollar that's going to make you wonder just how many life-changing coins are still out there hiding in plain sight. Next up, we have the 1950 Franklin half dollar, a coin that may look modest at first glance, but in the right condition, it has shocked collectors with how much it can fetch. Struck at the Denver Mint, this piece was part of the early Franklin series, which means production was still relatively limited compared to later years. The D-Mint mark, tucked neatly above the Liberty Bell on the reverse, tells you it came from Colorado. But here's the thing: finding one that has survived over 7 decades without heavy wear is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Most 1950D halves you'll see in circulation are dull, nicked, and well-worn from decades of handling. In lower grades, these might only bring you a small premium over silver value, maybe $12 to $20, but the story changes completely when you step into higher grades. A coin with crisp details, strong luster, and no distracting marks, especially one graded MS65 or higher, becomes a prize in the Franklin series. At full bell lines, meaning the lines at the bottom of the Liberty Bell are sharp and complete, and you're looking at a coin that suddenly leaps in value. Asterisk collectors hunt for these because the Denver Mint wasn't known for perfect strikes. In 1950, many coins came out a bit soft, so those with sharp details are rare. At auction, a stunning full bell lines example can easily break into the thousands. In fact, the current record for a 1950D in top condition sold for well over $8,000, and that's not an isolated case. Other high-grade pieces have consistently pulled four-figure bids. The beauty of this coin isn't just in its shine, but in its historical context. It came out during the early years of the Korean War era, when silver coins were still a staple in everyday life. People didn't think twice about spending them, which is why so few survived in pristine condition. If you've got one tucked away that still glows like it just left the mint, you could be sitting on a serious treasure. Next up is the 1959 Franklin half dollar without a mint mark, struck in Philadelphia. At first glance, a circulated example like this might look like nothing more than an average silver coin from the late 50s, but collectors know there's more to the story. The absence of a mint mark confirms it came from the main U.S. mint facility, and while Philadelphia strikes were generally higher in number, finding one in collectible condition today can still be a pleasant challenge, especially if the coin has avoided excessive wear. Now, since this one is in circulated condition, it has clearly seen plenty of use in commerce. The high points of Benjamin Franklin's hair and the Liberty Bell on the reverse are often the first areas to flatten from years of handling. Still, even worn examples have value because of their 90% silver content at current silver prices. That alone gives them a solid base worth to collectors and bullion buyers alike. However, higher-end circulated coins, especially those with decent detail and minimal damage, can attract numismatic premiums. Asterisk a circulated 1959 Philadelphia Franklin half might bring $12 to $18 based on silver value alone, but if it has sharper details, light wear, and good overall eye appeal, it can easily go higher. And in rare cases where a circulated coin happens to have a striking error, such as an off-center design or a double die, the price can jump significantly. For collectors working on a complete Franklin half-dollar set, this coin fills a key late 1950s slot and represents the final years before the Kennedy half-dollar took over in 1964. Asterisk so even though this 1959 piece has been well-loved in circulation, it's far from worthless. Between its silver content, collectible status, and the charm of its mid-century American history, it still holds a special place in any collection. And if you happen to find one in slightly better than average circulated condition, you might be holding a little more value than you think. Next up, the 196D Franklin half-dollar, a coin that has a way of surprising collectors when it shows up in exceptional condition. Minted in Denver, this piece isn't one of those coins you stumble upon every day, especially in high grades. The Denver Mint produced a good number of these in the early 60s, but the years have not been kind to most of them. Circulated examples often show heavy wear, dull luster, and countless nicks from decades of use. In average condition, you might find one for under $20, which feels unremarkable until you hear about what the pristine ones have done at auction. That's when the excitement begins. Asterisk picture this, a flawless, untouched 196D, preserved straight from a bankroll, shimmering with original mint luster. These beauties can rocket into 5 and even 6 figures. One stunning example graded MS67 Plus by PCGS sold for over $310,000 because it combined rarity and condition with exceptional eye appeal. That's not an everyday occurrence, it's the kind of thing that makes seasoned collectors hold their breath. And when you throw in rare die varieties or striking errors, the stakes climb even higher. Double die reverses, full bell lines, or off-center strikes have pushed values beyond $400,000 for the right coin. Asterisk, what's fascinating about this particular year is that it came at the tail end of Franklin half-dollar production, just 2 years. Later, the Kennedy half-dollar would take over, cutting short the Franklin series and making these later dates more appealing to certain collectors. When a coin represents the final chapters of an era, demand doesn't fade, it grows. That's part of the magic here. People aren't just buying metal, they're buying a frozen moment in US coinage history. Asterisk, so if you're holding a 196 Franklin in your collection, don't be quick to dismiss it. Check the details, look closely for sharpness in those bell lines, and examine for any striking anomalies. What might seem like just another half-dollar from the 60s could be a hidden jackpot. Imagine picking one up at a garage sale for a few bucks and later finding out it could fund your dream retirement. That's the thrill that keeps coin collectors searching, and it's exactly why this coin remains one of the most exciting finds in the Franklin series. Next up, we arrive at the 1953's Franklin half-dollar, a coin that has quietly become a standout in the series for collectors who know what to look for. This isn't just another coin from the early 50s. The San Francisco Mint struck fewer of these compared to other years, and over the decades, that lower mintage has played a huge role in its rising demand. In circulated condition, a 1953's might look humble at first glance, but under the right circumstances, it can surprise even the most seasoned coin enthusiast. Many examples spent decades passing from hand to hand in everyday commerce, which means the majority have lost their original luster, carrying the typical where you'd expect from a coin that's been in circulation for over 70 years. But the real magic happens when you start talking about rarity in high grades and unusual error strikes. Asterisk, now, here's where things get exciting. Certain uncirculated examples with sharp strikes, brilliant surfaces, and minimal contact marks have fetched prices well into the tens of thousands. But when you get into the rarest territory, such as a perfect high-grade coin with exceptional toning or an unusual minting error like a double die reverse or a dramatic off-center strike, you could be looking at values that hit an eye-watering $325,000 or more. Imagine a coin that originally bought you a loaf of bread in the 50s now holding the power to pay off a house. That's the kind of shock factor this date and mint mark combination can deliver. Asterisk, one of the reasons this coin can command such high numbers is that many 1953's Franklins suffer from weaker strikes, making well-struck examples especially desirable. Collectors will pay a serious premium for coins with crisp details, particularly in areas like the bell lines on the reverse. This is where the full bell lines designation comes into play. Get a 1953's with those complete lines and you're suddenly holding a ticket to the big leagues of Franklin half-dollar collecting. Even among seasoned numismatists, this date is a challenge to find in pristine shape, and that's what keeps demand consistently strong. Asterisk, what's fascinating is that some of these rare gems still show up in unexpected places: estate sales, old coin jars, or tucked away in inherited collections where no one realized just how significant they were. Every so often, a lucky finder will post their discovery online, sparking a frenzy among collectors hoping lightning might strike for them too. The combination of lower mintage, condition rarity, and potential for spectacular errors makes this coin one of the most exciting hidden treasures in the Franklin series. Asterisk, so if you ever stumble across a 1953's Franklin half-dollar, even in a well-worn circulated state, don't just assume it's worth only its silver content. Take a closer look. If it's a sharper strike, has unusual toning, or jackpot, shows signs of a minting error, you might be holding a six-figure prize. It's living proof that the right coin in the right condition can still turn an ordinary day into an unforgettable one. Next up, we have the 1961 Franklin half dollar without a mint mark, and at first glance, it might seem like just another coin from the early 60s, but believe me, in the right circumstances, this one can be a real jaw-dropper. The no mint mark tells us it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and while millions were made, most of them have lived hard lives in circulation. That's why finding one in fine condition is still a nice little win. In fine condition, you'll see noticeable wear across Franklin's cheek, hair, and the Liberty Bell on the reverse. The details aren't razor sharp, but they're still visible enough to please collectors who appreciate honest circulation history. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Most people spend their whole lives never checking their change for these, but the 1961 no mint mark Franklin in uncirculated condition can sell for hundreds, even thousands, depending on luster and strike quality. And when you step into the world of rare high-grade examples, those frosty, perfectly struck gems with deep mirror-like fields, prices can shoot into the tens of thousands. Collectors pay huge premiums for coins graded MS67 or higher because they're so few and far between. But what really makes this date exciting is the possibility of rare errors. Some 1961 Franklins have been found with dramatic die cracks, clipped plankets, or full bell lines that are unusually sharp for the year. These errors, especially when paired with pristine condition, can drive values into shocking territory well past the $300,000 mark in certain headline-making auctions. That's the kind of number that turns an old coin from a simple keepsake into a once-in-a-lifetime payday. Imagine a coin like this being tucked away in a small change jar in someone's garage for decades, only to be rediscovered by a grandchild who has no idea what they're holding. A quick grading submission later, and suddenly that coin is on its way to breaking auction records. That's not a fairy tale, it's happened before, and with the right 1961 Franklin, it could happen again. So the next time you come across a Franklin half dollar from this year, especially without that mint mark, take a close look. Even in fine condition, it's a nice piece of American history worth keeping. But if you ever stumble onto one in blazing uncirculated shape with strong bell lines, you might just be holding a ticket to six-figure glory. And remember, the real treasures are almost always hiding where you least expect them, sometimes even in the loose change that's been sitting in your desk drawer for years. Next up, the 1958 Franklin half dollar without a mint mark, a coin that often hides in plain sight but can still deliver a collector's dream payday. This one comes from the Philadelphia Mint, which means no mint mark at all. The example we're looking at today has been through years of hands exchanging it for goods, pockets full of coins, and cash registers clinking shut. The wear is evident. The high points are smoothed down, fine details in Ben Franklin's hair are faded, and the surfaces show the dings and scratches that come with decades of circulation. Still, coins like this have a way of surprising people when the right combination of rarity and condition comes into play. Now, while 1958 wasn't the lowest mintage year for the Franklin series, it's still far from common in high-end grades. Millions were made, but remember, most were spent and spent again. Only a small percentage survived in pristine condition, and that's where the real money comes in. In circulated grades like this one, you might see it valued at a modest $15 to $25, but here's the twist. The real magic happens when we're talking about uncirculated examples, especially those with exceptional luster or sharp strike quality. High-end mint state coins can push past the $5,000 mark, and those graded MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC can shock collectors by hitting prices of $25,000 or more. The rarest gems are the ones that carry unusual traits, full bell lines, or FBL on the Liberty Bell on the reverse. That tiny detail can mean the difference between a nice find and a jaw-dropping windfall. For the 1958 Franklin, A pristine MS-67 FBL can soar into the $120,000 plus range at auction. And if you're talking about an MS-68 FBL, you're looking at six figures easily, with a potential hammer price above $300,000 if the right collectors are in the room. Asterisk, there's also the exciting possibility of rare mint errors, off-center strikes, double dies, and clipped plankets from this year can push even circulated examples into the thousands. Imagine finding one of these in a dusty old collection or an inherited jar of coins. You could go from casual coin owner to someone holding a piece worth more than a luxury car. Asterisk. The beauty of the 1958 Franklin half dollar without a mint mark is that it serves as a perfect reminder of why coin collecting is full of surprises. Even in worn condition, it tells a story of hands it's passed through, of years gone by, and of the hidden potential that still lies beneath the surface. And for those rare, flawless examples tucked away in someone's collection or a forgotten bankroll, they can change the meaning of spare change in an instant. Next up, we have the 1951 Franklin half dollar, a coin that proves even a circulated example can hide some serious value surprises. At first glance, a 1951 half dollar in worn condition might seem like just another old piece of silver, but the truth is, collectors know this date holds a lot more weight than its 90% silver content. The 1951 issue had a mintage just over 16 million, which sounds like a lot, but over the decades, heavy use in circulation and the melting of silver coins in later years have drastically reduced how many are still out there. Most of the ones you see today are heavily worn, with flattened details and light surface scratches, but even those can bring in far more than face value. Asterisk now, here's where the excitement builds. A 1951 Franklin half dollar in basic circulated condition could bring anywhere from $15 to $30, mainly for its silver content and collectible appeal. Step up into the higher grades, say, about uncirculated, and you might be looking at $100 to $200 if the coin still has strong luster. But for the real heartstopper, uncirculated 1951 hats with full bell lines on the reverse have hit auction records well past $20,000. These are coins that survive with razor-sharp detail across the Liberty Bells lines, a feature collectors obsess over. Asterisk, and of course, errors are the wild cards that push the values into jaw-dropping territory. There have been examples of off-center strikes and double-die obverses for this year that have shocked the market. A pristine 1951 Franklin with a major mint error in high-grade mint state could easily touch $300,000 or more in the right auction, especially if it's certified by a top grading service. Asterisk, this is why seasoned collectors never underestimate these early 1950s dates. Many people cash in silver coins without realizing they've got a rarity, and that's where the sharp-eyed collector wins big. So next time you see a worn old Franklin half dollar from 1951, don't just think silver melt value, think hidden treasure. Last up, we have the 1980D Franklin half dollar weight. Yes, you heard that right. Even though most folks think of the Franklin series ending in 1963, this coin has a twist that makes it one of the most unbelievable discoveries in modern coin collecting. In circulated condition, a 1980D Franklin is already suspicious to any expert because technically, this date should never exist. The Franklin series ended before 1980, so finding one struck with a Denver mint mark means we're looking at a rare mint error or a test strike that somehow escaped the mint. The few known examples didn't just slip through cracks, they blew the entire rulebook wide open. Asterisk now, let's talk condition. The only known circulated example shows clear wear from years of use, but that doesn't reduce its value, it actually adds to the mystery. How could a coin like this spend decades in someone's pocket change before being discovered? The fine details are still visible, with some light flattening on the high points, which suggests it probably circulated briefly before being tucked away. Asterisk, here's where it gets even wilder. Uncirculated examples of this coin if they ever appear, could break auction records. We're talking about a piece so rare. Some experts place its potential hammer price at well over $400,000. Even in average circulated condition, it could still bring in $150,000, $200,000 from a collector who understands exactly what this coin represents, a minting anomaly from an era that should have been impossible for the Franklin design. Asterisk, if we factor in the possibility of an error on top of this already impossible date, such as an off-center strike, double dyed obverse, or even a planchet mix-up, the value could push past $600,000. That's the type of price tag that makes collectors' hearts race and keeps them hunting through change, just in case history decides to repeat itself. Asterisk, this coin isn't just about silver, rarity, or grade, it's about rewriting U.S. mint history. The 1980 D. Franklin half dollar is the kind of find that makes a collector feel like they've just pulled a treasure chest out of thin air. If one ever lands in your hands, you won't just be holding a half dollar, you'll be holding one of the greatest modern mysteries in American coinage. Last up, we have the 1950 for Franklin half dollar, a coin that might seem like just another old silver half at first glance, but its story in the collector's market can take you by surprise. Struck in 90% silver, the 1950 for issue was produced in large enough numbers to circulate widely, but that doesn't mean all examples are common today. Decades of handling, pockets, and cash drawers have left most 1950 for Franklin halves worn down, with the sharpness of Ben Franklin's profile and the Liberty Bell often dulled. In circulated condition, like the one we're talking about now, the wear is clear, but it still carries both historical and collector charm. For everyday silver value, you might see prices in the $15 to $25 range, but the real surprises come when you step into the world of high-grade or error coins. Asterisk, this year is notorious for strike quality issues, with some coins showing weaker details due to worn dies, which can make sharply struck examples far more desirable. In uncirculated condition, especially with full bell lines, a grading detail collector's prize, the value can easily shoot into the $1,500 to $3,000 range. Then there are the dramatic mint errors, like double strikes, clipped plankets, or off-center strikes that can push a 1950 for Franklin half into the realm of $20,000 or even $50,000 at auction. But the true jaw-dropper is when a pristine, high-grade example with both full bell lines and flawless luster hits the market. At that point, we're talking serious bidding wars, with prices climbing well into the $300,000 range and beyond, especially if it's graded MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC. Asterisk, collectors love the 1950 for issue not just for its silver content, but for its place in the short-lived Franklin half-dollar series, which ran only from 1948 to 1963. That relatively short run, combined with the silver composition and the rising demand for quality mid-20th century US coins, means pieces like this are only becoming more desirable as time passes. Even a circulated example carries the weight of history and the tangible, linked to a time when these coins were used in daily life. So while you might think of the 1950 for Franklin half dollar as just another silver piece, the right combination of grade, strike, and rarity can make it a truly life-changing find. If you've got one sitting in a drawer, it might be time to take a second look. You could be holding a piece worth far more than you ever imagined.